This bowl imparts a tremendous power to whoever. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. Our mission is that we are a welcoming congregation freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. If you're here with us for the first time, you're especially welcome. We invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation after the service. We have a committee fair after the service today. So if you've ever wondered about how you could possibly get plugged in here at UUCS, well, where is it? Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples, get my acronyms right. Just head out to the patio after the service, and every committee, every organization that's represented within the congregation is there, ready to talk to you and let you know what they do and what possibilities there are for your involvement in the congregation. So we urge you to do that. I hope that everyone has, I recognize that there's some folks down in Thomas Hall watching us streaming live this morning, so welcome to all you down there. And to anyone out on the internet that's watching this morning, especially my sister Susan, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm especially delighted this morning to have Richard Gilbert in the pulpit. Richard is one of my heroes. I first met him, some 30-some-odd years ago in Lexington, Massachusetts, when he came to deliver a sermon during a sabbatical time at the church there. I was his worship associate then, and it's a pleasure to be his worship associate however many years later this is. Richard and his wife Joyce joined us in our home over the weekend, and we had a wonderful time. Richard served 44 years in the Unitarian Universalist ministry, and he really hasn't stopped since his retirement. And I urge you, I sent an email out with his CV, and I hope you looked at that. He's a graduate of St. Lawrence School of Divinity. He was a minister both in Golden, Colorado, Ithaca, New York, Ithaca and Rochester, New York, and so many other things. He's the author of 5 books that will be out on sale in the foyer after the service, 2 books on religious education, 2 meditation manuals, and 6 books, and 2 books on social justice, and I urge you to stop by and take a look at those and pick up a couple of copies. All of them have been instrumental in my education. 2 of them are necessary reading for the development of Unitarian Universalist ministers. So welcome, Dick. Glad to have you here. I invite you, too, to look at the Sunday news that's in your order of service for all the things that are happening at the congregation, especially this coming Wednesday, another lecture in the Progressive Voices Speak Out series. It's been highly attended and really wonderful lectures on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, so I urge you to do that. And next Sunday, very important, for the whole congregation, you are invited to stay after the service for a workshop with our district executive, Ken Hurto, who will be helping us formulate sort of the draft vision statement that's come out of all the things that you put down on the bulletin boards out on the patio over the past month and a half, and the 2 feedback sessions that we've had in Thomas Hall over the last 2 weeks. All that work, all the work that you've done and the committee has done, Ken will sort of help us begin to craft that final vision statement. So it's really a must. I hope you'll be there next Sunday after the service here in the sanctuary. And we'll look forward to that. So if you would quiet your cell phones or any other devices you might have, and we will enter into a time of worship. Welcome. Welcome to all who come with a weary spirit seeking rest. Welcome to all who come with hope in your heart. Welcome to all who are seekers of a new faith. Welcome to all who enter this hall as a homecoming. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and know once again that we are not isolated beings but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. Let's join our voices this morning in singing our opening hymn, number 407. We're going to sit at the welcome table. Rise as you're willing and able. We're going to sit at the welcome Sounding good this morning. This chalice, this vessel with its broad open rim, stands ready to accept our diverse perspectives and hold the hopes and dreams that stir within each of us this morning. The flame we now kindle symbolizes our unity, our understanding that even though our paths may differ, we all strive for beloved community here on earth. As this community grows and thrives together, so may our flame leap and dance with the added glow of our many lights and radiate far beyond these sanctuary walls. As Blair lights our chalice this morning, I invite you to speak the response printed in your order of service. By Richard Gilbert. In the love of beauty, the spirit of truth, we unite for the celebration of life and the service of humanity. Thank you. So I have a story about a tree house this morning. And not just any tree house, but a tree house that was built by a congregation just like this one and not too far away. Now, this was the idea of one of the moms who was watching her kids play in the playground and looking at a big tree right next to the playground and thinking, wow, that would be a fabulous tree for a tree house. And so she started talking about it, and sort of the ideas started to flow, and then the plans were created, and then the lumber was donated, and the volunteers were all signed up. And over the course of 3 weekends in September, the congregation, along with the kids, built a beautiful treehouse. Now this was hey Wolfie, sit over there. This was a fabulous treehouse. There was a big limb from the tree that came up through the floor and out through the roof. There were 2 ways up, a rope ladder and a regular ladder. There was a slide down right into the playground. It was fabulous. And all the kids, after it was constructed, got a chance to decorate it. And one of the older kids actually painted a fireplace on one of the walls inside just to make it real homey. Well, this was great, and they had a wonderful celebration to open the treehouse, and the kids played, and it was great. But after a few weeks, the different ways of using the treehouse sort of became apparent. You know, the little ones like to climb up the rope ladder, race across the treehouse floor and down the slide and go back and around and back and around. And some of the older kids wanted a place to just sort of hang out and talk and listen to music and maybe play some cards. And those two things weren't necessarily compatible. And one Sunday after service, one of the little ones was running around and disturbed a card game 3 times in 3 minutes, and that was it. A fight broke out. There were sort of harsh words and a little name-calling and a little tears, and the parents got involved, and it sort of got a little bit bigger and bigger. And you know what happens in congregations like this. Well, so some of the parents, said, we have to ban the treehouse until the kids can learn to cooperate. And some of the parents said, well, my kids did more work on the treehouse, so they should have special rights to be in the treehouse. And some of the parents said, well, why didn't the staff supervise this better? You know how that goes, too. So the RE committee called a meeting to try to set policy for the treehouse, and the minister started thinking, because this argument and conversation was going on a long time, and there was conflict in the congregation. She thought maybe she should call the district's exec to come in and do some conflict mediation. So the congregation called a meeting for a Sunday down the road a little bit, and as they were coming in, they noticed something outside, that the kids were actually playing cooperatively in the treehouse. Well, what had happened was that the kids had gotten together and realized that they all loved the treehouse, this new treehouse, and they wanted to figure out how they could play together. And a few of the kids had remembered in their classrooms the covenants that they had created. Yeah. It's covenants just like the ones you have created for your classrooms. And here are the covenants from our RE classrooms, and they're really spectacular. This is from the high school group, which is really detailed. But the 8th grade covenant just says, no snoring, welcome and respect everyone, limited lecturing, learn with games. And they're all really great, and they speak to the need to respect one another. So they decided that they were going to create a covenant for the treehouse, and they did that together, and they pinned it up right above that beautiful fireplace in the treehouse, and it worked. So the parents were coming into this meeting, and they were looking out there, and things seemed to be going well. They sent one of the teachers out to find out what had happened, and the teacher came back and reported that this covenant had been made between the kids. And the adults felt pretty sheepish that the kids had figured out how to get along and respect each other, but the adults were still gathering to have conversations about the treehouse. So that's the story, but there's 2 things that I want you to remember. One is the importance of covenants. In a faith like ours, which allows us to think for ourselves and believe what we want to believe within the limits of our principles, we need to set some rules of how we work and live together. And the kind of covenant that you do in your classroom is just the kind of thing a whole congregation needs to work well together. We have our principles, which are a covenant between our congregations, but we need covenants between each other as individuals and as a group. So that's one thing. The other thing I want you to remember and think about is in a covenanted congregation like this, where we're freely respecting and open to the worth and dignity of every person, we can all learn from each other. In the congregation I talked about, the adults learn from the kids, and the kids learn from the adults. And here the same. I can learn from you as well as you can learn from me. So that's the other important thing. You have a lot to teach, and we're grateful for your presence. So thank you, and we're going to sing you out today to your classes. Bill, if you're ready, we'll go. Chairs to the side. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere. So now we have an opportunity to talk with each other, to share joys and sorrows, those joys or concerns that have followed you through the week and into this sanctuary, those things that sit in your heart and have a need to be spoken. So if anyone has a joy or a sorrow this morning that they'd like to share, I will bring the microphone to you, and if you'd state your name and share briefly what's in your heart, that would be appreciated. For our losses, for our joys, and for all those joys and sorrows that rest in each of our hearts, we take a moment of silence. And as we hold those thoughts and deepen into a time of meditation, let's join together singing Gathered Here. We'll sing it through twice as we enter into a time of meditation.
Good morning. You can't believe how delighted I am to be here. Friday morning, I was shoveling snow at 0. Thank you for turning up the thermostat here and in my life for these few hours and days. Glad to be with you, and I invite you now to get comfortable in your chairs, relax, take a few deep breaths, center down, and join with me in the spirit of meditation. In a world of discord, let there be music in my life. I know the world is full of disharmony. Cacophony is everywhere. The rhythms of living are ragged. The melody of life often hits sharps and flats when we least expect them. Tunes are often left unsung. Fragments of notes fly hither and yon. Composing a life is hard work. Still, let there be music in my life, the music of the celestial spheres in the dark of night, when all about me is still. The music of the seasons, their silent changing. The music of voices lifted in song and laughter, as well as in pity and pathos. The music of the spoken word melodically presented, of the written word upon the page, the poetry of life. Let there be music in my life, intruding upon my tired spirit, uplifting the weary soul, letting me know my life is yet a song to sing. Let me be part of the chorus of humanity. Let me be part of the chorus of creation. Let there be music. Let us be silent together. Our theme this morning is covenant, and I invite you to join in covenant to read our responsive reading printed in your programs on the insert. There is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Well, that was my line, but anyway, notice what you care about. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know. Talk to people you never talk to. Treasure curiosity more than certainty. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections.
Remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together.
Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world.
I invited Richard here, and I asked if he would preach on covenant. This congregation does not have a covenant that we follow. We have our principles, but in the process of our creating a mission statement and a vision statement, the missing piece of that triangle is a covenant. And so between now and our annual meeting, we'll have an opportunity to work together to create a covenant for this congregation. And I invite you now to, in the spirit of generosity, to contribute to the ongoing mission of this congregation. In fact, I ask you to contribute to the community in which you share. The morning's offering will be gratefully received. We have our glass doors open today, so a little bit longer on the left side, or my left. So.
You may have noticed a certain musical idiom this morning. You're going to hear more of it. Thank heaven. It's really great. Thank you. And of course, the reading is, "Let there be jazz." On the 13th day of creation, God made the heavens and the earth. And after God had rested and after the world had worked for a week and came to that first real weekend, God said, "Let there be jazz." And there was jazz, and God saw that the jazz was very good. God saw that jazz could lift the hearts and gladden the souls. God saw that jazz caused people to clap their hands and shout for joy. And it was well-pleasing in his sight. Then God said, "Let there be saxophones and banjos and trumpets and drums. Let there be clarinets and guitars. Let there be trombones and big bass viols. And let there be voices to sing lyrics and scat. Let them jam together night after night so that they may learn and experiment and change. Let there be those with hands and heart and breaths and souls to play the music within them. Let there be those who listen and respond from deep in their beings. Let them come from the east and the west and the north and the south. Let them play and dance and shout and make festival." And God said, "Let the people feel the joy of the earth and the sky and the hills and the trees. Let the whole creation clap its hands together to the beat of the song. Let them be together and feel the goodness of life together." And God said, "Let it happen again and again, year after year. And let the music play from the time the sun has risen in the sky until it goes down. And let the music be around all of the night. Let there be rest and sleep some other day. For this is a time of song." And God said, "This is the time for it to happen. Let it happen now. Let it be jazz." Okay. Thanks, Tony. Mark Twain is reported to have said, "Wagner's music is better than it sounds." Actually, he was quoting fellow comic humorist Edgar Wilson Nye. It's not quite clear exactly what they meant, though I don't think they meant anything very complimentary. However, I think the words do suggest something about our own religious faith, a faith we cherish, though sometimes we may wonder just why. Like Wagner's music, Unitarian Universalism is better than it sounds. After all, how do you explain Unitarian Universalism to others who know nothing about us? Surely we are much too complicated for a mere elevator speech. We are a veritable Noah's Ark of miscellaneous folk without creed or dogma. How does such a menagerie do religion, much less do religion together? An historical example of how we do religion comes from the Cambridge Platform of 1648. It is widely believed that the Puritans were a creedally strict group, but not so. In the platform it says, "We covenant with the Lord and with one another, and one with another, and do bind ourselves in the presence of God to walk together in all his ways, according as he is pleased to reveal himself unto us in his blessed word of truth." Now, while this passage contains language we would perhaps not use today, the key thing to remember here is it is not a creedal statement. It says, not we believe, but we covenant. Unity is not achieved by believing the same thing, but by covenanting together, promising to walk together in matters of the Spirit. So in trying to find a metaphorical way of expressing this, of illustrating it, I turn to jazz. This sermon had its genesis in New Orleans. I have been to the Crescent City 3 times in my life. I've walked the French Quarter where the music comes from everywhere, from the churches and the clubs and the sidewalks. One serendipitous Saturday evening, just before a denominational meeting, I was looking for something to do, and I noticed in the newspaper a certain New Orleans trumpeter was playing across the street at the Odeon Theater. I enjoyed an unexpected evening with the trumpet music of Wynton Marsalis, playing a 2-part program. First, great classical jazz, and second, a tribute to Martin Luther King, Jr. I knew then there was a God who lived in New Orleans. Well, being musically challenged myself, I have compensated by trying to cultivate a deep appreciation for listening to music. Because music speaks to my spirit, and I'm sure to yours as well. And so I say, let there be jazz, and let there be faith too, a robust and vibrant faith, paralleling with that wonderful feeling of jazz. So I think jazz is a very apt metaphor for Unitarian Universalism in ways I will try to spell out for you, and symbolizes the covenant which binds us together in spite of time and space and the space between the stars. Jazz and faith have a long and intricate and intertwined history. It emerged in New Orleans in the 19th century, in the African American community early in the 20th century, with its real beginnings in the church. And while I am no jazz aficionado, I do enjoy it. And the more I come to enjoy it, the more I think it speaks the message of liberal religion. For example, in the discussion of how he composed his music, Duke Ellington explained that since his trumpet player could reach certain notes but not certain other notes, and the same with his trombonist, could not reach all the notes but quite a few notes, Ellington wrote his music within the limits of those who were playing the instruments. He said, it's good to have limits. We live within limits. Unitarian Universalism is at its heart a very humble faith. We dare to say that we do not have the final and ultimate answers to life's persistent questions. Why are we here? Where are we going? What is the meaning of it all? As a tradition rejecting creeds which proclaim final truth, we pursue the answers to the questions much as the jazz player pursues his or her music, within limits. So we need to live with the kind of curiosity with which I understand jazz players play. And I'm going to wait for nice feedback after the service to see if I come anywhere near talking about jazz. I understand that from jazz players, there are times when they don't really know where they're going or where they're going to wind up. When they start a riff, it's not clear just exactly how it's going to go. They discover that they are not only players, but also composers at the same time. As one writer said, the solos require the same discipline as the written works of a composer. Improvisation is key to jazz as it is to liberal religion, which I suggest means it's not for the faint of heart. And that is why I have made the cornerstone of my ministry the contention that each and every one of us, each and every Unitarian Universalist, is a kind of composer. In this case, a theologian. We compose our own religion. We build our own theology. Jazz is an art form that depends on questioning, on challenging the conventional wisdom, Now, jazz was not easily accepted in the musical world any more than our theology was accepted in the theological and religious world. Any endeavor which celebrates so much freedom has got to be suspect to those who would deny people the freedom to think or play for themselves. Furthermore, jazz and Unitarian Universalism are fundamentally democratic. Like jazz musicians, we are engaged in a supremely collaborative effort. And while it is tempting for modern people, contemporary spiritual seekers, to be spiritual without being religious, that is, attending to matters of the Spirit without a religious community, we are wise enough to know that we need to be in community if we are to pursue this spiritual quest most wonderfully. Otherwise, we will, in the words of one author, confidently gaze down into the well by ourselves, see our own image reflected there, and call it God. Before they start to play, I understand, jazz musicians all have some idea of the tune and what the chosen instruments can do. Even when they are not soloing, they have to be intimately attuned to the music that is being played by others at all times, because they never know quite where it's going to end or when their time to do a riff comes in. You never know where a search for theology might end. As John Coltrane put it, you feel as though you stepped into an empty elevator shaft. Have you ever felt like that theologically? And aren't you glad there was someone there to help you from falling, to keep you from falling? Now, not many of us are so adept at life that we have a corner on our own experiences and our own feelings and our own beliefs. We can't go out there and do it all alone. Most of us have discovered this before very many years have passed. We are not only individuals, we discover, but we are also members of a religious community in which we each play our solo parts. We play them the better for enjoying the music of the others in the ensemble. We play off each other much as do jazz musicians when they're really getting into it. For no one of us has a handle on the final questions or certainly on the final answers of life, should there be any. No one of us knows it all. No one of us can do it out there all alone. Like jazz, Unitarian Universalism is a collaborative effort. And there is in jazz an openness, a kind of freedom that has its counterparts in our liberal religious faith. But there is in both a kind of fundamental discipline, without which the freedom leads to anarchy. One musician compared jazz to playing tennis without a net, to borrow a phrase from Robert Frost as he talked about free verse. Playing tennis without a net. And that has been the charge against liberal religion, that on our freedom we have gone too far and there is no structure left for us. Some years ago, speaking to that point, I read an article by then Dean of the Eastman School of Music, Howard Hansen, who happened to be a neighbor of ours in Rochester. He was bemoaning the huge salaries made by the pop and rock and roll singers he saw about him. And then he also saw the struggle of the Eastman students working so hard for all those years, trying to find a poor-paying, maybe a part-time music teacher's job, giving piano lessons and so forth, making a pittance while the rock and rollers, whom he felt did not know nearly as much real music, were making a fortune. He wasn't pleased with that thought. And then he suggested the popular jazz musician Chuck Mangione for providing a very useful model. Mangione, an Eastman School of Music graduate, could explore jazz freely and creatively because he knew the fundamentals of music. He had studied them. He wasn't making it up. He was making it up out of a context of musical training and education that he had received. That grounding made his freedom in music meaningful and gave rise to his creativity. Likewise, Unitarian Universalists need to be grounded in fundamental religious knowledge and experience. We need to know our Bible, the history of religions, the world religions, the basic issues, the basic and fundamental questions. Well, equipped with this kind of knowledge, this kind of background, we then become more free to build our own faith. This last week, I had a friendly but very serious, lively meeting with a group of Muslim scholars from Saudi Arabia. We were very respectful of one another. I, the Unitarian Universalist, a few Christians, no Jews, I think, but others, Muslims. And although we had a very friendly and respectful conversation, it became clear we were just coming from different places because they were so attuned to a fundamental belief in the Quran as being the fount of all wisdom. And that conflicted, as I told them, with me and my belief that revelation is not sealed. That's what I am as a Unitarian Universalist. There are truths emerging every day, truth and beauty and goodness all around me. That's our belief in the authority of truth known or to be known. Now, of course, there are liberal dogmatists among us. You've probably met them, who reject a kind of open-mindedness. I especially remember one Unitarian Universalist, happily I don't know his name, who said he would believe anything so long as it was not in the Bible. Dogma on the left is no more appealing than dogma on the right. Both are wrong-headed and break the bonds of community, our covenant to walk together. We, Unitarian Universalists, are heretics. We insist upon choosing. We are those who choose our faith. We've rebelled against Calvinism with its theological doctrines of Trinitarianism and predestination. We contend that Jesus was man, not God. We hold that no sensible and compassionate God could at birth condemn some to heaven and some to hell. But we rebelled against John Calvin for other reasons as well, not the least of which is musical. This father of Presbyterianism, John Calvin, tied music to the sinful culture around him and restricted its use in worship to a unison line without polyphony or instruments. But Martin Luther, the redoubtable Lutheran reformer, said, and I quote, "A person who does not regard music as a marvelous creation of God must be a clodhopper indeed, and does not deserve to be called a human being. He should be permitted to hear nothing but the braying of asses and the grunting of hogs." I'm Lutheran here. Truth comes not only in propositions of logic and science, not only in words of prose and poetry. Truth can also be conveyed in a stirring sound which cannot be put into words. The great jazz artist Louis Armstrong was once asked about the meaning of his music, to which Satchmo replied, "Lady, if I could say it, I wouldn't have to blow it." Sometimes we express our faith in words, sometimes by music, sometimes by action. We speak and sing it and try to live it within a community of faith. And though we each have our own views, play our own instruments, do our own soloing from time to time, we have covenanted to walk together, ultimately to play together. So jazz is that kind of juggling act between the planned and the spontaneous. So it is with liberal religion. Despite the fact that some people believe that Unitarian Universalist emotions run from the gamut from A to B, free from the taint of enthusiasm, as someone put it, the bland leading the bland, a sense of ordered inertia, we are a feeling as well as a thinking people. We actually laugh in church from time to time. And while we carefully plan the structure of our worship, every part fits into every other part, we know who does what, just when, we are never quite sure what will happen next. What joys or sorrows will be spoken? What feelings will be evoked with response to the spoken word or the played music? Or certainly, for ministers, we never know how people will react to the sermon. It's a great adventure of the Spirit. Just ask Tony sometime. Religion is both of the head and the heart. The amazing thing is that we experience all of this together. Religious liberals covenant to open ourselves to the planned and the spontaneous. We are something like Duke Ellington, who spoke of jazz and the Terpsichorean urge. Terpsichore, in mythology, the muse for dancing and choral song. The Duke recognized that the urge to dance in life is absolutely fundamental, whether it be in the body or the mind or the spirit. And of course, the psalmist reminds us to celebrate with timbrel and dance. These are tough times. Many among us are discouraged, tempted to give up to the religious and political cacophony we hear round about us. And we are tempted to retreat into our own spiritual selves, to meditate our lives away. I think in that context of the avant-garde 20th century composer George Antile, and his Ballet Mécanique. For those of you not familiar with this piece, and I'm certainly not, but I know a little bit about it, it's scored for automobile horns, airplane propeller, fire siren, 10 grand pianos, and other instruments. When it was performed in Carnegie Hall in 1924, one concert goer near the orchestra could stand no more than a few minutes of the racket. Tying his handkerchief to his cane, he raised the white flag and left. There are times we are tempted to raise the white flag and leave, for life is too much with us. It is then that the soaring sound of the Spirit can be heard. Out of the chaos, out of the cacophony comes rhythm, comes harmony, comes the Spirit. Transcending the dissonances of life, reminding us that life matters, we matter, and the great celestial being of which we are a part. Unitarian Universalism is better than it sounds. We covenant together to make music both spiritual and ethical. Our music is a collaborative effort. It is not by a single composer. It is not simply to be memorized and recited. Our music combines the discipline of the past with the spontaneity of the present, the improvisation of our own experiences. There are, to be sure, occasional sour notes, discords, but we relish the excitement of the freedom that never knows quite where it will lead. So let us hit the high notes of the Spirit with Wynton Marsalis on trumpet. Let us strum the nuances of the soul with a B.B. King or a Charlie Bird or a Les Paul on guitar. Let us listen with appreciation to Benny Goodman's mystical wailing clarinet or Paul Winter's haunting tribute in Missa Gaia. Let us sing with Ella Fitzgerald humanist hymns of life. Let us be beautifully spontaneous like Marian McPartland or Dizzy Gillespie on piano. Let us listen to Gene Krupa's drumming divinity in the tradition of Henry David Thoreau, who said we should march to our own drummer, no matter how distant or far away. Let us listen as carefully to the vibes of feminism as the deaf percussionist Evelyn Glennie, and we have experienced this, who feels the rhythms with her feet. Let us share the joy of Louis Armstrong, trumpeting praise to the unknown. Jazz is a metaphor for Unitarian Universalism. Our faith is far better than it sounds. Like jazz musicians, we do our own riffs from time to time, but we are integral parts of the same ensemble. This is how we covenant together. And so let the people feel the joy of the earth and the sky and the hills and the trees. Let the whole creation clap its hands together to the beat of a song. Let them be together and feel the goodness of life together. Let it happen again and again, year after year. And let the music play from the time the sun has risen in the sky until it goes down. And let the music be around all the night. Let there be rest and sleep some other day, for this is a time of song. This is a time for it to happen. Let it happen now. Let there be jazz. Amen. Our hymn is number 1028 in your teal hymnals, The Fire of Commitment. We have spoken of covenant, and so in these closing words, I ask you to join with me and respond to my words with the wise words of Annie Dillard. There is no one but us. Let's try it together. There is no one but us. I'll give you the cue. The world awaits a miracle to lift us from the burden of our very human nature, but there is no one but us. The world awaits a Savior to lead the unquestioning way into the paradise for which we learn, but there is no one but us. The world awaits but does not want to hear someone to speak the truth, to distinguish right from wrong. But there is no one but us. The world awaits a time when the machines of our own hands will save us from the problems we have made for ourselves. But there is no one but us. The world awaits its saviors. We, the people, await those who will do the work of the world for us. But there is no one but us. Amen.